and my sign language interpreter is Teresia Dorcas. All right, we kickstart off with our highlights. Americans vote between President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden as Kenyans living in the U.S. speak on the highly contested election. President Uhuru Kenyatta to speak to the nation tomorrow on the rising COVID-19 cases as 52 students of Kolanya High School test positive for COVID-19. And National Assembly vows to appeal the decision made by the High Court to nullify 23 laws passed without consulting the Senate. All right, welcome to the broadcast. I just remind you that we are live on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube as Switch TV Kenya. We start with the question of the day. Who do you think will win the 2020 U.S. general elections between Trump, that is President Donald Trump, and Joe Biden, who is a former president? SMSs on 111 444 111. You can tweet us at Switch TV Kenya. My Twitter handle is at Fred Mwitiriri. We start in America, where Americans have headed to the polls to conclude a bitter and divisive U.S. election campaign as Republican President Donald Trump seeks to overcome Democratic rival Joe Biden's lead in opinion polls to win 4 more years in the White House. Nyakundi Kelvin reports.
The voting caps a campaign dominated by the coronavirus pandemic that has killed more than 231,000 people in the United States and put millions out of work, and shaken by nationwide protests over racial injustice against Black Americans. Biden, who has framed the contest as a referendum on Trump's handling of the virus, promised a renewed effort to combat the health crisis, fix the economy, and bridge America's political divide. He has kept a relatively steady lead in national polls.
Trump's become president. You know, Donald Trump is going to be the first president. It's your tax dollars, by the way.
It, however, remains one of the most surprising facts about voting in the United States. While the popular vote elects members of Congress, governors, and mayors, state legislators, it really does not determine the winner of the presidency. That decision ultimately falls on the Electoral College. When Americans cast their ballots, they are actually voting for a slate of electors appointed by the state's political parties who are pledged to support the party's candidate. Results in Florida are expected to begin to trickle in relatively quick today night. But Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin will not begin counting the flood of mail ballots until later today, raising the possibility of a prolonged vote count that could stretch for several days. Nyakundi Kelvin, Switch TV.
All right, and right about time, I'm being reminded that we have our U.S. correspondent, George Manyange, who we are with him live from the U.S. George, if you can hear me.
George, can you hear?
Beautiful. Now, George, you can start by telling us you are in which state and what is the situation like right now in the U.S.?
Okay, I'm in Minneapolis, and it's located in Minnesota State. And the situation currently in Minnesota, people woke up very early and went to vote, cast their votes, because this is the last day of elections. Because we had an early voting, and today the elections were included in all states and in all countries. So yesterday, all the candidates, Joe Biden and Donald Trump, concluded their campaign in the country. And so now it's up to the supporters to elect a favorite candidate, and yesterday Joe Biden concluded his campaign together with President Trump, the fourth president of the United States of America, Barack Obama, who campaigned in Atlanta, Georgia, and he was urging supporters there to elect Joe Biden because some of the changes, there are many changes that need to be, there are many changes, that the country, and it was urging supporters to come out in large numbers and vote.
All right, George, just tell us the situation. How is the situation like, and how can you analyze the U.S. 2020 elections when you compare it with the 2016 elections?
Incumbent President Donald Trump is seeking his second term in office, and according to the poll, Joe Biden did it with 52%, and Donald Trump is trailing with around 4%. And the thing which makes this election much more interesting compared to the 2016 elections vote is that this time around, many voters turned out in large numbers and vote. Currently, as we're speaking to you right now, around 101 million votes have cast in the whole country. Actually, now in Minnesota, around 10, 10 a.m. in the morning, and the polling was at around 6 p.m. So there's a lot of time for voters out of the country to come out. And Donald Trump, he was urging his voters to come out in large numbers and vote for him, saying that if Joe Biden is elected, he's going to attack. He was saying that Biden is going to shut down the economy, shut the country. And for Joe Biden, he was saying that first, if he takes this, will be controlling the corona pandemic, because corona pandemic, which actually has affected the United States right now. More than 230,000 people have died of the corona pandemic, and that's an issue because Donald Trump has failed to follow the scientists and doctors' advice, because Donald Trump seen him in run, he doesn't wear his mask, so that's the main issue. Is going to affect his electoral votes come this time. So many people want change, because I think there are 4 key things which will make Donald Trump, according to my statistics, because number one, Black Lives Matter movement. Donald Trump has failed to recognize that there's brutality in the country. Number two, corona pandemic. Many lives have lost, and Donald Trump has not taken any action to stop the pandemic. Number three, the economy. Since the corona started, many Americans have lost their jobs. That's a big issue in the country. And number four is Donald Trump failed to condemn white supremacy. During the debate, he failed to condemn it. This is the issue which is affecting most countries, but he failed to condemn it. So these are the 4 things. These are the 4 key things that make him lose the elections, because right now in most of the states, he was having a popular majority of supporters.
Because of time, George, if I can cut you short because of time and ask you this very important question, what has contributed to Trump's dropping popularity in some of the Republican states where we know in 2016 he won in those states, especially Florida? What has contributed to him dropping out in this race in that particular state, especially Florida?
Florida is going to decide who's going to become president. If Florida turns blue, then it's game over for Donald Trump, because Joe Biden now will become the new president-elect, because Florida as a state is being dominated mostly by the Republicans. Most things which has made Donald Trump fail in terms of his supporters is the way he handled the corona pandemic and the issue of the economic crisis in the country. The corona pandemic is the first issue, and the economic crisis in the country is the second. So that's the reason why he's popular. But in most of the Republican states actually has been low compared to how it.
All right, George, and finally, there are reports that White House has been barricaded. If you can confirm this to us, and I've seen some shops being closed down and guys just staying at home. Some guys are telling me in the US that even in the shops, there's no food stuff. So what's happening? What's the situation like? How is the situation like, especially at the White House?
The White House yesterday was barricaded by stone walls and electric fences, and there's the fears reached around the country that the US election violence, because if one party loses and the other party wins, there'll be people won't understand, people won't accept results, because Donald Trump actually has said that he's going to contest he's going to contest in the Supreme Court if he loses the elections, because saying that Joe Biden might rig the elections. So there's fear that if Donald Trump wins the elections, what happened in during the Black Lives Matter movement, want to go to the White House and confront him. So there was the FBI, the Secret Service, trying to push the senators away from accessing the White House. So that's the reason why they barricaded the White House. And not only the White House has been barricaded, but most shops in the country actually, many business people have closed their shops, and electric on their shops. because they fear that anytime now one loses, there might be a wide loot in the country, and that is affecting businesses because it happened
Okay.
with the Black Lives Matter
Thank,
during the protest, and many voters created jobs, and so it's actually a issue, and that's the issue that trying to out time and see what happens.
All right, many thanks. That is George, our very own correspondent from the U.S., who is in the state of Minneapolis. That is in Minnesota. And we'll be bringing you more stories as they happen in the U.S. Remember, early this morning, we are ahead like 10 hours or so. They started voting. We'll be telling you about it, of course, in our subsequent bulletins. Now, moving on, during most election years in the United States, polling day marks the beginning of the end of what is usually a long and contentious political season. Generally, the winner is announced the same day or by the next morning in the case of a particular close race. But 2020 is not like most years. The coronavirus pandemic has upended nearly every aspect of this election cycle, from how presidential campaigns are conducted to how the country ultimately votes. John Kirore, a Kenyan businessman based in the U.S., speaks to us about expectations and voter experience in the 2020 U.S. elections.
The coronavirus pandemic has at times overshadowed the U.S. election campaign, with the epidemic in the U.S. worsening over the final weeks of the race.
This is the most important elections we have had in a long time in the U.S.
How so?
Because what's been going on in the U.S. with the current president, with some rhetorics that he's been preaching, there's been a lot of hate in the U.S., especially for us black people. So we are looking forward to, we need to take our democracy back.
This, however, has seemingly not interfered with the electoral process in the United States, as over 100 million people cast their ballots in the early voting today. Even though Trump regularly brags that he's added 4 million jobs since taking office, immigrants like John Kimani, while comparing Obama's tenure to Trump's, say that business has been bad for them during Trump's term as president.
It's been a different kind of campaign year this year because of COVID, because everything went to virtual. Even the presidential conventions, the conventions for the Democrats, for the Republicans, they were held virtually. Some of them were person to person, but with COVID, all that changed.
Biden and the Democrats have built their election plank on immigration largely around reversing most of the immigration policies enacted under Trump's administration.
Now the expectations are very different because Joe Biden is he's way ahead in all the polls. So I don't see a repeat of 2016. Right now, by tomorrow morning, we are looking forward to hearing some good news because we are looking for changes.
With all these factors put into consideration, interestingly, in the U.S. to be elected as president, a candidate must win at least 270 votes in what is called the Electoral College. Each U.S. state gets a certain number of votes, partly based on its population, and there are a total of 538 up for grabs.
Notwithstanding COVID-19, during Obama era, we've seen the boom in business, especially because you're doing businesses with other countries peacefully. The economy was growing so fast, but now with this guy, things have changed. Things have slowed down. Here is a man who said COVID-19 was not there. And the businesses right now in the US, they are slowing down, they have slowed down. So we need a change.
This system explains why it is possible for a candidate to win most votes nationally, as Hillary Clinton did in 2016, but still lose the election. The final results of this election are entirely in the hands of the American voters on whether Trump will be back in the White House or Joe Biden will be White House new occupant. Lincoln Wambogo, Switch TV.
Thank you, Link. And we are taking a short break. Before you do that, earlier on, I asked you, who do you think will win the 2020 U.S. general elections between President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden? You can SMS us on 111 444 111, or you can tweet us at Switch TV Kenya, at Fred Mutriri. We take a short break. We'll be back with more in a short while. All right, and welcome back. Earlier on, I asked you, whom do you think will win between President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden? Some of your SMSs. Mombingare, you are saying, US has broken my heart. Trump is capable of anything. Kipchumba Arab Koril, you are saying, I am for Trump. Okay. Dex Atikua, you are saying, I was shocked Trump winning 4 years ago. I don't want that to happen again. I wish you are voting, brother. Mr. Fortune, you are saying, I am for Trump. Halligan, you are saying, I am for Trump. Moving on, the National Assembly says it will appeal the decision made by the High Court to nullify the 23 laws that were passed without consultation with the Senate, saying it's an act of disrespect to the House and other arms of the government. On the other hand, the Senate has come out to applaud the efforts to take the court their concerns. Hadia Mosiwa reports.
As the supremacy battle between the two parliamentary houses fuels up, the National Assembly has expressed its rage on the judiciary's decision to nullify the 23 laws, saying they will appeal.
But a bill to provide for cybercrime, in fact, the Court of Appeal itself has that when that law was taken there for challenge. The Court of Appeal said this does not concern counties. And it is constitutional. The way it has been passed by the National Assembly is proper. So I don't understand whether the three judges who are now sitting on appeal on that other judgment of their superiors.
The Senate proceedings, on the other hand, has been filled with praise and fulfillment, many applauding their success in halting the Appropriations Act bill by the National Assembly.
The BBI is here. 35% is going to be given to the counties. If that money is going to be put in, it is even more important now than ever that the Senate is strengthened so that it can do its representative and oversight role, particularly this oversight, Mr. Speaker, where we've been talking about funding for oversight that has really never come through.
As a senator, and the reason that I offered my services in this case is that I believe that the Senate must continue to play its constitutional role, that role must not be emasculated, and that the Senate, without the Senate, the parliamentary system as designed by the Constitution will come to naught.
This merry, however, was not witnessed in the National Assembly, with members of the Parliament throwing the blame on the judiciary and the Senate on wanting to be involved in enacting the laws that do not concern county governments.
Our constitutional mandate is being interfered with. We are actually being stopped from doing what we should be doing. And because we want to obey, we will stop. But we also, because we want to obey, we want to ask the Treasury to also obey and stop paying, especially to those two institutions.
Let us appeal it, but Kenyans should engage. We should discuss the powers of the judiciary. And they should know that much as we respect their powers, they should also respect the powers of other arms of government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
However, the BBI debate found its way into this discussion, with some members of Parliament finding a connection between the two agendas.
But Mr. Speaker, when now the BBI is proposing somewhere for people to complain, they are talking issues like this. When we are saying we need an ombudsman, because today I will have written to the ombudsman of the judiciary, telling him these three judges have done full of themselves.
I want to say again, and I have heard people saying, Mr. Speaker, I think we need the BBI for sure, so that we have somewhere where people can go and complain about the judiciary. And for sure, Mr. Speaker, this House is independent. We have many things that Kenyans are looking for.
It is still unclear on whether the National Assembly is out of business as they await the President's address tomorrow. Hadia Mosiwa for Switch TV.
Now, following the COVID-19 pandemic in the country, 52 students, 6 teachers and 2 staff members have tested positive for COVID-19 in Salvation Army Kolanya Boys High School in Busia County. The positive cases have been isolated within the school, while the rest of the school fraternity has been quarantined within the institution. Earlier this evening, Deputy President William Ruto has suspended his tour of Cumberland, saying, and I quote, the upsurge in COVID-19 cases strongly indicates that a second wave might be in the offing. For this reason, I have decided to significantly scale down my public engagements until further notice. The empowerment meetings for this weekend in Machakos, Kitui and Makueni counties are postponed end of court. Meanwhile, Kilifi County Assembly will remain closed for 2 weeks after staff has tested positive for COVID-19. The County Assembly Speaker Jimmy Kahindi has urged staff members to get tested and ensure they go on quarantine.
The staff who tested positive, it's been proved that he mingled with the members of staff, who in turn mingled with members of the County Assembly. So I think it's an issue that we all need to take it seriously. And for now, we just hope that the virus will not spread more. And for that reason, therefore, we have taken the measure to send our staff home and members of the County Assembly to stay away from the County Assembly until the 14 days period lapses. Then we shall undertake to carry out tests before members can resume back to their normal duties.
Let's get into the world of commerce. Good evening and welcome. My name is Clifford Ndubi. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta has urged Kenyans to support the local manufacturing industries through the Build Kenya initiative. The president reiterated that this would be the only way to creating jobs as well as achieving one of his big four agendas on manufacturing.
Tunasema pia tunataka kulete watu wakuja wafanye investments katika taifa letu la Kenya. Tunataka kazi kwa vijana wetu na hatuwezi kupata kazi bila viwanda. Si ni namna hiyo? Ya? Kama Madam Ngilu, nirudie tena kule kwake Kitui, kama hangekuwa na ardhi ya kufanya hiyo mafactory yanafanya ya nguo na male mengine, iwe kwanza angeenda kutafuta shamba ya kununua kwanza.
Now, elsewhere, when COVID-19 pandemic first caused businesses to shut down in the country, there was a lot of confusion and fear. Now, almost 7 months later, there is still a lot of uncertainty as to what next for the following months and years. Now, businesses and SMEs are looking at a slump in businesses, as our reporter Kennedy Kimani now tells us more as he sat down with Catherine Ngau.
While many businesses in Kenya anticipated for a post-pandemic world, it seems that the new normal has arrived. COVID-19 cases are increasing daily, and it's getting clear by day that the pandemic isn't going to just go away.
The challenge is that a prolonged period of closing businesses, closing the economy, will have a very serious impact on the economy of this country, on the business performance for various businesses, on ability to create employment. How do you keep people employed if the business is not happening effectively? So the challenge of having a second wave is to imagine that the government can even imagine to close the economy again. I don't think Kenya can survive that.
Survival has today become a focus area for many SMEs, with others leveraging on social media to do business online.
The only way for businesses to thrive in these conditions is to really wake up, keep learning, understand the changes that have taken place, be open-minded and be adaptive. Social media is a very good tool for just keeping the engagement going on. If you're not on social media now, you are not able to engage your clients because they are not necessarily out there in the open to interact with you face to face. So you can use it even to show your products, to showcase your skills and everything else.
There is no doubt that a second wave is a scary prospect for businesses in the country. With increasing numbers of COVID-19 cases and fatalities, there is an uncertainty for another lockdown which could take the businesses back to square one. Kennedy Kimani, Switch TV, Nairobi.
Now, the Kenya Electricity Generating Company, KenGen, will pay a total dividend of 1.65 billion Kenya shillings to its shareholders. This follows approval of the board's recommendation by shareholders to pay the final dividends of 25 cents for the year or for every ordinary share of 2 shillings 50 cents. Also, the company is looking to tap on the potential green energy.
Very few countries in the world who are taking about 95% of our energy from green sources.
We are now almost 93% green in terms of consumption. And if you look at our strategy, all the projects in the pipeline are all renewable energy. And this makes us continue to care for the environment and reduce the carbon emissions and therefore the sustainability of the country and the world.
All right, that's all we had for you from the business world. It's time for sports.
It's time for sports, and Kenyan trio of Helen Obiri, Faith Kipyegon and Perez Jepchirchir have been listed among 10 nominees for the 2020 World Athlete of the Year Female Award. Obiri, World 5,000 meters champion, ran a world leading of 8 minutes 22 minutes over 3,000 meters at Doha in September 25th, while Perez Jepchirchir has broken the world half marathon record for women only raced twice. World 1,500 meters champion Timothy Cheruiyot is the only Kenyan in the 10-man shortlist for the 2020 Male World Athlete of the Year Award. The winner will be declared during the 2020 World Athletics Award to be held virtually on December the 5th. The Kenya Under-20 national team has stepped up preparations for the CECAFA Under-20 Championship with a 3-1 win against Sudan during a build-up friendly match that was played yesterday at Kasarani Stadium. The team is placed in Group C with Ethiopia and Sudan. The top teams in each of the 3 groups will proceed to the tournament's semi-finals alongside best runners-up, while the finalists are set to earn an automatic slot at the Africa Under-20 Cup of Nations.
From the beginning, of course, Sudan wanted to make sure that they score as early as possible, and of course they did by the simple mistake that we did in our own half. But I still encourage our players that we can do it. You just need to be calm. It's a friendly match. You just need to be calm, composed, keep the ball, try to attack. Then, of course, in the second half, of course, we equalized in the first half. It was 1-1. Then in the second half, I think I can say that we created many chances and we utilized all of them.
All right, remember tonight there are so many other matches that are being... All right, remember tonight there are so many other matches that will be played. Manchester United will be playing tomorrow, but tonight Man City and Liverpool will be playing. Now to the question of the day asked earlier on, whom do you think will win in the US elections? Duncan Company, you are saying Biden. All right. Thank you, Fidelis Miheso. Biden, but Trump won't accept. That's why Americans are buying guns and enhancing security of their shops. Thank you so very much for watching Breaking Today. My name is Frederick Mitiriri. My sign language interpreter tonight was Tracy Dorcas. My apologies. Earlier on, I said Teresia. My apologies. So have yourself a good night. We'll be bringing you the US elections as we proceed. Usiku mwema.